Just testing. Testing.
Alan, is that one on? I'll probably forget. Is that on?
I'll turn it on.
Thank you.
I was the last one to do this. And you need to stand up. No, because there's a certain height difference.
Oh, is that you need to stand up?
Yeah, I need to stand up the whole time. And I was kind of swaying because I had a few beers. So it was kind of like...
Oh, that's quite evil.
It was awful. It was awful.
You would never do that.
No. And ever since Sam's beside Chris, I'm sure he gets told.
Maybe that's fine.
So you doing this? You doing something?
No.
It's for the live streaming.
You want me to have it?
For the live streaming.
Does that one work?
Yes.
Okay. Hello everyone and welcome to the Startup Grind. Hands up, who's been to Startup Grind before? Few that's not. For those of you who don't know, we are a global community of startups in just announced 250 cities, 100 countries worldwide. Our goal is to create communities of startups in each city in the world. So we're here in Edinburgh today with Kerry and Lisa. I would just like you all to give a big Startup Grind welcome to Lisa and Kerry.
Thanks very much, Daniel. Just a couple of extra points to note. So we're very active on social media. If you want to take any pictures or tweet along as we go, it's at Startup Grind SEO. Just another point tonight is that we're really pleased to be an official VentureFest Scotland feeder event. So if you don't know, it's happening on the 20th of September in Glasgow, the Glasgow Science Centre, a cross-sector innovation event, opportunities to exhibit, to come along and learn from great speakers. So get involved in that as well. And I think the link's on the invite email that I sent out to everyone. But tonight, really excited to welcome Kerry Sharp, Head of the Scottish Investment Bank. I'll do your intro in your bio, not to steal your thunder. Just a couple of stats that were quite exciting. The Scottish Investment Bank has over 280 portfolio companies valued at over 220 million, which I thought was pretty impressive. Kerry's own backgrounds in corporate finance and venture capital started out with the Bank of Scotland and 3i before joining SE in 2006. Initially joined to manage one of the co-investment funds and then established and managed the Scottish Investment Bank investment management function before taking over as head of the Scottish Investment Bank in 2013. So welcome to Kerry.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me and thanks for coming out. I know it's a lovely night tonight, so I'm sure you'll probably be rather at home with a glass of Prosecco, so thanks for coming in to listen to this.
So just to start off, Kerry, can you talk us through a bit of your own journey? How did you get to where you are today and what you do?
Okay, so I studied accountancy at university, which made me realise I didn't want to be an accountant, really, pretty much after that. And I joined Bank of Scotland, as you mentioned. So I went through the graduate scheme there, involved in structured finance latterly, and syndications between Edinburgh and Glasgow. And that got me interested in the investment side of things. And initially I went to 3i on secondment, loved it that much, the investment side of it, ended up moving there, and I worked there for around 5 years or so, and then it was getting close to 3i starting to move out of the market. That was becoming quite clear. They started to move up the food chain much more into the private equity side rather than the small business side, which is what I enjoyed in particular. So I left there to do property lending for a little while, but decided that wasn't really for me, sorry. And Scottish Enterprise was investment at that point, and for me that was a great balance between the investment side, working with companies that I really enjoyed, and the public sector, sort of giving something back and getting involved in the kind of greater good, as it were. So that caught my interest, and I've been there ever since, doing what I'm doing.
And what was it about working with the small companies and that side of it? What is it that you really enjoy about that?
So for me, it's the people. It's the ideas and the interests that people have, and just the motivation that people have got behind their ideas, and the passion and the vision. And you see that much more in investment equity than you do in kind of stable long-term businesses, where it's all very interesting in different ways, but it doesn't have that same kind of vision round about it, and the same people with their interests and entrepreneurship.
Okay. And talking about the Scottish Investment Bank, can you just talk us through how it operates and how it's structured? Just to go through that in case people are not familiar.
Yep. So the Scottish Investment Bank is the investment division of Scottish Enterprise, and hopefully most people know that Scottish Enterprise is one of, or the biggest of the two enterprise agencies in Scotland. So SE's role is economic development, so trying to make Scotland a more competitive country and try and escalate our profits as a country. And what my team does is all the investment activities, all the commercial investment activity across the whole of Scotland, so also the Highlands and Islands area as well. It's obviously quite a specialist area, so rather than High doing their own, it makes sense for it all to be combined together to have that kind of economies of scale. So any commercial activity from an investment or lending point of view that SE gets involved in, and my team are responsible for that. But the main parts of our model and what we do is the financial readiness side, which is where we deal directly with companies that are looking to raise funding, both helping them navigate the landscape, because we know it's quite complicated. There's quite a lot of things out there, but it's great. There's a lot of choice, but it can be quite difficult if you don't know where to look and what you actually need for your business. So that team works very close with the companies, help them navigate what's there, help them understand what's the right thing for them as a business, and also helps them get ready for that. So whether it's business plan, pitching, or just introductions to different investors. The other main part that we do is our co-investment funds. So we operate 3 funds that are all co-investment funds, which means that we're led by the private sector. So we work very closely in partnership with the private sector. They're the ones that find the deals, decide they want to do the deals, and then bring them to us to invest alongside. And we then work with them throughout the kind of history of the company, and support them in driving value through the business, and then from our point of view, hoping to make a commercial return and also an economic return for Scotland.
Is there a typical size of equity investment that the SIB would tend to co-invest on? Does it vary?
We can invest from down to 20,000 up to, there's no limit as such, but the funds that we operate are 1.5 co-investment fund of 2 million there. Company we're looking to support are high growth and export potential companies. So the ones that we believe from an economic point of view can add the most to the economy. So that's where we will invest at the type of company. And we are looking for, as mentioned, companies that are raising private sector funding. We want to go in alongside sophisticated investors who can add value to the company, not just the money. So you've maybe heard the term armchair money versus sophisticated money. And we're looking to have investors that can really add connections and contacts and much more than just funding the company. And we want to align ourselves with them to make sure that the companies are getting the best value, the best opportunity to grow and to reach their full potential.
Something I should say, actually, if anyone has a question, you don't need to wait till the end. So if you do want to ask a question on anything I'm asking, just put your hand up and I'll try and involve you. But just going into that about value, how does SIB ensure value in terms of return? Because it has to be commercial investments.
Yep, so everything that we do is commercial, and that's where we get our state aid compliance from, so that's why we're aligned with the private sector. So we are looking for returns, and we won't invest where we don't think that there will be a return. But we are a patient investor, so we don't, so whilst we've got what we call funds, they're not funds in the traditional sense of the kind of closed before investments are really materialising and returns have been made, and that's not a challenge for us. We've got some that are older than that, some that we exit, much shorter timeline than that, but it is all about trying to get commercial returns, and that's where we will demonstrate our model is working as well, and that kind of sets us apart in the public sector as well. We've got that return and income angle to what we do, and the more income we can bring in, the more we can continue what we're doing as well.
And in terms of what makes a proposition investable, what are the types of things that you would look for, and what's attractive to investors?
So I think first and foremost people. Investors invest in people they like, pretty much. I know some people kind of struggle with that concept. It must be about the mod, it must be about it, but actually it's not, because investors see lots and lots of propositions. I mean, some of them literally kind of hundreds come through the door. So what they read things and then they meet people, quite quickly, and there needs to be that kind of synergy there. Because ultimately, there are challenges ahead for any business, and having an investor that kind of works closely with the company is, essentially important. And having that mutual respect there, I think, is really important for any business and any investor. So people definitely, I think a strong vision is really important too, followed up by a strong strategy behind it. And investors are really looking for something that's disruptive or something that's going to really change things. That's where they're going to make the most money, something that makes a step change in the market. There's a need for it to be scalable. Businesses that don't have that scale are not going to be the really high growth opportunities which investors are looking to achieve.
And is it across all sectors?
Yes, so there are two main funds. Investment Venture Fund are sector agnostic, so we will invest in any type of company that meets our criteria through those. We do have another fund called the Renewable Energy Investment Fund, which does what it says in the tin. It's focused on renewable energy. We do sometimes do other approaches. We invested in Edinburgh Life Science Fund, so that's a third party fund where we're an investor. And that was because Life Science in Scotland needed a boost, they needed a local venture capital company, we supported that happening. But we do still invest in life sciences through our other funds. But what we try to do is to have a generalist approach so that all businesses over all sectors, all geographies, if they're in that criteria behind the company, are able to get funding from us.
And how do you go about things like due diligence? Is that the SIB take a role in that, or would it be managed already by the investors that are maybe bringing pipeline?
So mainly we don't, and our plan is not to. Our approach is to different funds operate differently. One of them, the co-investment fund, we diligence the investor that we're going to sign up as what we call an accredited partner who brings deals to us. Through the venture fund we don't do that, but we're still very mindful of who the co-investor is, and our approach to the deal will be dependent on who the co-investor is. We are seem to be led by the private sector, so we really want them to have done the diligence, and we're sort of going on the back of that. So we want to rely on what they've done, but it will depend whether they've done any, and when they did it, and if they're invested already. There's various aspects to why we might need to take a different approach. But our first and foremost way to operate is to very much go in the back of what's done already, and only to do diligence where it's required over and above what's there, to limit the time and to limit the cost to the company, but obviously the risk for us and public sector funding, we have to be very cautious of that, so sometimes we do have to do so.
And at a more a practical level, what type of involvement does SIB have with the portfolio companies once you're co-investing there? To take board seats, for example? So we never take a board seat ourselves directly, and the main reason for that is quite simple. My portfolio managers have probably got 30 to 35 companies each, and for those that know what comes with the board seat, you'll know that that's just not physically possible or desirable for them, given that. So we never take a board seat directly, so an investor director position, but we do seek to appoint non-exec directors to some of the companies we're invested in. So to support the companies getting the right skills around the table that they need to support their business and their growth. Sometimes it's because we need somebody else into the company to help us with maybe some challenge that we've got, so we will look to do that. We will always have an observer, right, and the managers do try to go along to board meetings. Not all of them, because again it's just not possible. There are that many companies to do that. But where there's a need or a challenge, or just on an infrequent basis, we'll go along just to see the board dynamics and get closer to the company and people around the table. When it comes to the wider point and what we do to manage our companies, again,
We look to be led by the co-investors, the private sector investors in the companies, and very much rely on their input and their skills, their connections around about that. But we do get involved in other ways. So sometimes we're needed and they want us at the board and want us to come and help with our connections, etc. But we particularly provide a route, an ISO route into the wider Scottish enterprise. So Scottish Enterprise has account management service, as people might know about, which is a direct support for companies on a growth trajectory with either leadership skills or strategy development, or getting into international markets through our SDI, Scottish Development International. So we provide that other aspect to it as well, to make sure that the companies are aware of what other support can be there, including grant support and the like as well.
And then obviously with the number of portfolio companies that you have, you're not going to know each of them at an individual level, but if you can maybe talk at maybe more of a trends level, what are some of the challenges that you might see or impacting growth opportunities for companies in their portfolios?
So there's obviously quite a degree of uncertainty around at the moment on the kind of political side, and that is causing some companies some concern, although I have to say not as much as I thought there might have been. And I don't know whether that's a combination of just life's uncertain, and there's always some uncertainty, and therefore it's just one more thing. And I think some of it's almost people getting a bit fed up of it. It's sort of there all the time, and it's difficult to work out, what's positive, what's negative, and no doubt a lot of it will start to kind of cross itself out depending on what combination of outcomes happens. So I think some companies are just deciding, that's just kind of life, and what will happen, and kind of focus on the business. We do see some skills issues particularly coming up, and particularly in the kind of tech side of things. So as there's a hub in Edinburgh, there's a lot of skills required, and the software side, that's becoming a bit of a challenge for some of our companies.
It's a very competitive market.
Yes, and in some ways that's good, because we can say Scotland's a great place to encourage a lot of the individual right skills to come up and do. You've got people up the road, down the road, and that kind of hub of activity is a good way to get people here. But I think it's kind of at that tipping point of it's just a real struggle to get the right skills, and that's constraining growth in a lot of ways as well.
What about inward investment into Scotland? Have you seen any trends there?
Yes, and you might have seen the EY Attractive Survey was out yesterday, the day before. Scotland's came second again to London South East, which is great. So our inward investment record remains really strong, and that's because people do see Scotland's a great place to work, to live, see the skills, see the supportive business environment that's there, and a very strong ecosystem. So that's great for us to be able to attract companies in. There is growing concern though with Brexit and other things, in the background, how much impact that's going to have, and I certainly know our SDI team are working really hard at the moment in trying to convince a lot of companies that Scotland remains a great place to come. So we've not seen that fall off yet, and I'm certainly obviously hoping it doesn't, but that's the risk for us, that becomes more and more challenging, particularly as we get closer to the outcomes.
In terms of the financial readiness programme, can you maybe give us some more examples of what types of things might be helpful to people that are looking at setting up a business or growing a business from that?
Yeah, so I guess a couple of things I'd suggest that people need to have a good think about. It's really, so at the point I made earlier around investors and how they invest in companies and people that they like. I think the same works for companies looking for investment. I think it's very important to find an investor that you like, that you trust, that you're comfortable with, because when you hit that kind of rocky patch in the road, then you need to know you've got a supporting investor that you can have a conversation with, and you can tell your problems to, and you can kind of work through it together. We spend a lot of time with companies supporting them on their funding strategy and making sure they have one, because a lot of them don't. A lot of companies want to raise money today for the thing they want to do, and not actually think through the future, and that's really quite important.
To having an exit?
Funding strategy and exit strategy, that would be my next part, because on the funding side, it's all very well raising money now for what you're looking to do, but the type of investment or funding that you get can have a big impact on the next round of investment that you might want to have. So if you take effective funding from the wrong place, then your next round you might not be able to get for what you're looking to do. So things like crowdfunding are super for certain types of companies and for certain growth trajectories. But for companies that are then looking for a different type of funding going forward, whether it's angel or VC funding, it might not have been the best thing to do to take crowdfunding first. And it's not, don't do that, and I'm not saying that for a second, it's about thinking through where are you going, what's that funding strategy going to look like. And I've seen some companies making sensible decisions about taking less funding now from a party that's the right party than more funding from another party that actually isn't, knowing that when that next round comes, the round after, that's going to be a better place to be. And the same on the exit side, companies really need to think about what that exit is going to look like. And primarily so that they can obviously focus on it and know that they're going in the right direction for it, but also so they're very clear on the value inflection points in the business. We've fortunately seen a number of companies that aren't focused enough on the exit strategy and they've kind of missed the value inflection point, which is sort of fine if you're going for something else. But if you missed it, you didn't realise you've missed it, and the next one is 5, 10 years away, then you might regret that in due course. So having it set out is really important for investors to know both what their future funding strategy is and also where that exit is going to come from. And things change and people are very aware of that, but it needs to be a key focus for the business so that they're always thinking about going in that direction. And they shouldn't be worried about changing it, and it's fine. Investors don't have a massive issue with strategies changing as long as they're part of that and they know the reasons why and they support the change of direction. I think sometimes companies can fear kind of changing their strategy and thinking investors are going to be put off by that. And clearly they will be if it's the wrong thing to do, but if they can get their head around it and understand the reasons for it, then they tend to be very supportive of it.
And what about, in terms you mentioned earlier on about follow-on funding, what are the types of, milestones or achievements that investors want to see? Because I guess they don't want to be funding the business as usual. Is there things that they would look for?
Yeah, so I think it probably depends on whether it's kind of tranched investment that's literally milestone related and obviously that becomes the milestones to be met. And that is something we see quite a lot more in Scotland than other areas, that kind of tranched investment. Some people see it as drip feeding companies, and that's a criticism that we sometimes get in Scotland. But that can be the case sometimes, but something that is literally trying to focus management on direction of travel and all the milestones that they need to achieve. But for investors to follow on, and if you've got an investor with deep pockets, then it's obviously good to know that at the beginning so you know that you can go back for more funding. If it's in line with direction of travel, if there's reasons for why things haven't been achieved that were set out, then again it's fine as long as it's clear. What investors don't like is where a company's always trying to get someone just never getting there. If you're going back for money you've not achieved what you set out to do, then you need to be able to explain why. And there's market issues, there's challenges, that is part of life in a company, but some of them should be foreseen and some of them should be planned for. Occasionally things are neither, and again, that's possible and acceptable. But for things that should be foreseen, then investors are really expecting that to happen, and do then have concerns if companies are not meeting milestones and just not seeing what could be happening in the corner and not planning for it. So having a plan A and a plan B is usually very important.
Question at the back there, Craig.
Yeah, I've got a question with pitching. I advise clients mostly in the food sector and in the life science sector, and I recognise that there is both have difficulties, but in the food sector, for pitching to investors, then they bring along a sample of whatever it is they've got, so you get to try it. It's quite easy for an investor to understand the market that they're in, because they say we make a certain type of bread, this is the type of breads in the market. We can bring along competitors' breads. It's quite easy to get across what you're talking about to investors. In the life science industry, I find I feel sorry for some of my clients because they get in science, which can be really complicated, and of course to understand across is quite often lost, particularly if the person pitching is the genius behind it and finds it difficult to articulate. Do you have any hints or tips to help people that are maybe complex technologies and they're wanting to try and pitch it in a meaningful way to investors and maybe don't have that background?
Yes. So my suggestion would be for anybody to be able to pitch their business to somebody that knows nothing about the sector within a minute. And that's really, really difficult. but the amount of time, I sit in a lot of pitch panels and the like, and if within a minute you really have no idea what the company's doing, you're not really going to get much after that. And I think that it's a really big challenge for people who are the techies behind a company to be able to talk about it in a way that other people understand, when it's obviously their area and they know it well. But it's incredibly important to be able to do that, and that's a skill in itself, I think, for anybody. So I think getting other people to help with that is probably the most important thing to do, because if you are that kind of techie genius, you're unlikely to be able to yourself convert it into layman's language. So I would definitely recommend that they bring in other people round about them to do that, and to do a lot of practicing, because one of the kind of suggestions I would have for any company is that people should see themselves as pitching all the time. So it's different people in different ways, but ultimately if you're trying to bring in customers or staff or non-execs or funding or whatever it is, you're pitching your business to all those people. And perfecting your pitch. You can't start. I mean, I have heard people say that elevator pitch is the most important thing, and sort of nothing in a business plan matters. And I certainly wouldn't go as far as that. But the pitch that you do, whether it's in your exec summary or you do yourself verbally, is incredibly important. So a lot of investors will say, as I mentioned, they get hundreds of business plans and they look at the exec summary, and if they don't understand it, it kind of goes in the bin. And that's unfortunate, and very unfortunate for life science type companies and others that have kind of complex things behind it. But it's just a fact of life, really, that generally there's obviously some specialist investors that fully understand it, but a lot of people we're speaking to won't.
I remember one of my clients had a treatment for premature ejaculation, which he went round to 2 different VCs, and it was clear that the VCs were just far too embarrassed to even contemplate the potential benefit, and it was a very important market in the world, and it's been picked up and it's doing very well. But I think literally the problem was that they couldn't explain it the way that the other side wasn't too embarrassed. They were too embarrassed to actually listen even to the project. So they found a specialist VC that had previously invested in some sort of sexually related products and was absolutely fine with it.
Would you say that's related to doing your research on your investors before you?
Yes. Absolutely. So, not all types of investors are interested in all types of businesses. And back to the point on your fund strategy, same idea. It's around the type of investors that are right for your business, whether it's specialist investors, whether it's corporates, which is an important kind of market these days as well, and trying to align what you're doing and your funding need with the type of investors. Now that can be incredibly difficult. I've heard from people like Leslie Eccles at Fangio previously around speaking to, I think it was 90 different VCs before somebody sort of really got it and was interested. And unfortunately that is part of raising funding, and that's why it takes a lot of time sometimes.
How long does it take actually?
Well, I mean, it can really depend, and particularly the earlier stage I think can be more challenging. But then I spoke to a company recently that was the first person we spoke to ended up investing in their business. So it is how long's a bit of string, to a level. But it is incredibly important to do that research, and it's one of the things that we're, so through our financial institute mentioned earlier, one of the things we're trying to do more of is to help companies with that, because it can take a massive amount of time, and the more we can do to have the connections and the contacts, we've got databases now that we use to work out who's investing where, to then start to home in a bit more kind of clarity, a bit more granular detail as to the right investors to speak to.
And when should companies think about raising money?
All the time. that is one of my probably biggest frustrations, I have to say, with companies, because we try and bring a lot of investors to Scotland to showcase Scotland and what we've got to offer here. We go out to companies to say, right, we've got so and so coming up, do you want to come and kind of pitch? We're not fundraising just now. Can be often the response that we get. And my response is, you're always fundraising until you've got to where you're going and got that exit, or some people it's a lifestyle business, and that's fine. Until you've got there, you're always fundraising. And I think you probably often heard people say that the easiest time to raise money is when you've got money, and it's incredibly true. Because if you really need your money now, then you can become quite desperate, either in your language or who you're approaching or the way you go about it. And same in exit, for that matter as well. That when you've got no cash, it's very difficult to negotiate a good exit.
Get the terms that you want.
Yes, and it's absolutely the same the way in. So I think that's the point on you're pitching all the time for your business in lots of different ways, and you're fundraising all the time in lots of different ways. You just have to focus on that, I think, all the time. And should take every opportunity to go to a pitching event, to a networking event, because even if you're pitching your business, you're not actually needing money now. Actually, that's quite nice if you're watching pitching events where they're not all looking for money now. Then you need to get in front of people who could be interested. And a lot of the VCs and even the later stage VCs will say they track companies for a long, long time. So we get a lot of later stage VCs coming to events like EIE, which is obviously much earlier stage, and they just want to know what's coming through, want to understand what's there, and something will take their eye, and they wouldn't be investing in it at that stage, but they just want to know what's there, and they'll monitor it for a long time, keep in touch with the company until it's right for them.
I read recently about some VC funds starting to be put more into angel funds, or actually tracking and networking with angel funds. Is there a route for that sort of networking and pipeline building that you see?
Yeah, so we did a piece of research a couple of years ago on angels and VCs working together, and we tend to be worse at it than elsewhere in the UK. We don't have enough angel VCs working together. Now, some of that is because we've actually got a really strong angel network here, and a lot of angel investment, and a lot of the angels are seeing the companies through to the end of the funding anyway. But there's also just tension with some of the ways both of them fund, and that's one of the things that we want to work on to make sure more is happening, and that we can play a role in that, because we can co-invest with angels, we can co-invest with VCs, so we can kind of go between the two and help with that. And we've had a number of conversations with VCs around the role that they can have in helping early stage investors exit, which I think is often the right thing for the early stage angel investors.
That frees up that capital.
It does, exactly, to go back into hopefully Scottish companies again, which is what we want to see.
Well, I've got one last question, but what I'll do is I'll share the floor first, and I'll open up to any questions further.
Taking you back to your co-investment model, as public sector, what lessons have you learned working alongside private sector and investing in companies?
Oh, now that's a good question. So, what lessons have we learned? So, private sector investors don't know everything, I would say would be one of them, and they're not all equal would be the other thing. There's a lot of different models and a lot of different approaches out there. But I would certainly say that the investors that we see are very committed to supporting Scottish companies in their growth trajectory, which is, as I say, what we want to see. So we work very closely with the private sector, and we, as I mentioned, want to be led by them. But we also know that we can't fully be led by them, because ultimately they're there for commercial returns, which we want to see too, but we're very much focused on the economics, and that's why we do what we do. So we are in the main aligned with them, but we're not always fully aligned. So we need to work very closely to make sure they know what our objectives are, and they know what we're trying to achieve out of our investment as well.
What would you say kind of makes a startup look really appealing to an investor, and at the early stages, how much should you be prepared to give up to get an injection of cash?
So I'll take the latter question first. So one of my other little frustrations is, sorry, what you said there about giving up. So you sell your equity, but I think that there is a concern that people feel that they are giving something up, and that can cause kind of tensions with investors when they are obviously kind of purchasing it. But ultimately it's about trying to get a balance right. So you do see a lot of companies who don't want any external equity in their business because they want to own it all. And that's kind of fine to a level, obviously, but as I'm sure you've heard people say, you'd rather have a smaller slice of something much bigger, which ultimately is what it's about. And I guess it's around trying to get the right investors in, back to my kind of earlier point, and trying to get that balance right. And investors want management teams to be motivated, and obviously the equity side is a big part of it. So seeing commitment there, be it financial or time, is very important, but ensuring that you're aligned and that motivation is there, for everybody. So you have to maintain a meaningful equity stake in a business, for you to want to work as hard as investors want you to work. So it's definitely a balance, and it depends again how many investors you're looking to bring into your business, and making sure that that balance works between everybody as well, to make sure that you've got the investors aligned with each other as much as aligned with you. And so the first question was around what makes a startup attractive, is that right?
Yeah, because you might have low or no revenue in your early stages, and so what is it that makes it particularly appealing to get involved in a startup?
So I think it is that kind of excitement of it, so having something that's innovative and different and groundbreaking. So I think when investors see that something can have just massive potential, and I think one of the challenges, and back to the point earlier around a business model trying to explain it, the investors need to understand the opportunity that's there, and whether it's technical or not even that technical, just understanding the opportunity. Because if they don't see it as being big, then it's unlikely to catch their attention. But that needs to be balanced with the risks as well. I've spoken to a number of companies and read business plans where it's all these great opportunities, but nothing about the risks that need to be balanced. And investors want to know that companies understand it, and that they're focused on both sides of it. So there's no point trying to sort of hide the risks. It's about being upfront about and being clear. But for a lot of investors, I think something that just takes their interest as well. Something I've just seen a lot of businesses, because I see invest in a totally different sector than I've ever done before. And when we're trying to track it to help companies, find it quite difficult to understand, why have you invested in this when this is what you've done over here. But it's just because they like the people, back to earlier point, and they just really quite like the idea and it's taking their interest. So it's a difficult one.
Really helpful.
Michael?
Michael from Show. Where do you see Scottish Investment Bank in 5-10 years' time?
Oh, now that's a good question. So, from the point of view of what we're doing just now, we have got a massive portfolio, as Lisa mentioned, and that's early stage, cash hungry companies. And that's great that we've generated that in Scotland and helped these companies, but it's also a bit of a challenge for us as well, because these companies do need further funding to grow. That's always been the intention. And we're very aware that there is a bit of a glass ceiling in some ways for companies looking to raise that kind of Series A and above. And we need to start moving more towards helping companies with that angle. So we set out in a very early stage market to try and achieve a lot of investment happening in Scotland, and we've done that. There's a lot happening. It's grown in the last couple of years, and there's a massive amount there. But that's just not enough to have a lot of companies funded at the kind of first or second round. We need to really start seeing more Series A and above happening. So I think our focus, certainly so in 5 years' time, I think we'll have more focus on the Series A and above activity. It doesn't necessarily mean us investing, it might, but the kind of connections that we're talking about earlier, helping companies work out how to get that Series A is probably the biggest part of what we'll be doing.
Moving up that funnel.
Yeah.
You said it's a 10 million area. Is that the Series A money that
Well, kind of 2 million above is a way
2 million.
that we look at. That where we see the biggest challenges
Right.
starting to increase at the moment is the 2 and above. But 5 to 10 is often the area that people talk about in the market as an area that needs attention.
Yes, right. Great, thank you.
Will you usually drop out at that point, or do you currently participate in
No, we do. So we can follow our money and do that and plan to do that, but it just becomes more challenging for us with 280 companies. If they were all to raise quite a lot of money, then we've only got so much ultimately.
Well, what set circumstances would you drop out?
So we haven't. We have dropped out of funding rounds. Sometimes because we don't believe in the company's future. And there has been a couple of good circumstances where we've not had to invest because other investors just love it and come in and fund it quite substantially. We're not getting extra diluted and big penalties for not investing. We would like to see our role as investing much more in the early stage and allowing other investors to come in. But that dynamic is quite a difficult one in the market. New investors rule. Effectively, if they come in, early investors aren't able to follow their money, then they can often get disadvantaged quite substantially, which is the problem with a lot of the early stage angel investors that we touched on earlier. So we're keen to try and play that role and not have to continue to follow necessarily, particularly when it's bigger amounts, but that does get difficult for us not to do that. The ideal is that we do find a mechanism to allow that to happen without having such a big pull on the public purse, because we can be quite a substantial shareholder in a lot of the companies, and it's quite a financial pull on us if the big funding rounds happen.
We've got time for just a couple more, so Craig.
Yeah, Kerry, you mentioned earlier there are some very clear skills challenges out there just now. How much does that come into your decision process when you make an investment decision?
So again, we're relying on the private sector investors mainly in the proposition that you bring to us. And certainly in the initial stages, we have a number of conversations about skills and how the skills within the organisation, the company, or within the board are going to be looked at. So we, in the main, are looking to the private sector to be thinking about that rather than us having a lot of conversation initially. So we are asking them to ensure that they are focused on that and they've got a plan to do that. And we want to use our contacts to support as well. So one of the things that we've got is Global Scots, which if you've heard of it, if others have, it's one of the things that we operate, which is our connection with various people across the world who have got a connection with Scotland. They're called Global Scots. We sign them up as that, and they're there to provide advice to companies. So sometimes we use that to allow people to look further afield to try and get the skills that they need as well.
Okay, one more.
Is there an accreditation process for either syndicates or the VC that works with you? Is there a list for that?
Yeah, so the co-investment fund has that model is based on a accredited partner model versus a venture fund, which isn't. So the venture fund, first, because that's slightly easier, and that through the venture fund we'll invest alongside any private sector investor.
Would that include founders?
Well, we can and we have done. We're sort of moving slightly away from that at the moment, just because we want to focus, I mentioned earlier, more on the arm's length sophisticated investor side, because that's where we're seeing the most benefit coming to our companies. But the model is designed to be very flexible to allow us to invest alongside anybody looking to invest in a company. And our approach to that investment will depend who it is, because that could still be a very sophisticated VC, and therefore our approach will be much more hands-on to maybe an individual high net worth individual who's maybe not a sophisticated investor, or where there are family and friends and founders, which we have done previously, as I say. But the co-investment fund is set up in an accredited partner way, so we diligence the investor that wants to be a co-investment partner, and that's looking at their history and the diligence process and everything else. And then the investment process is very streamlined thereafter, because we've signed them up. We're not looking at the investment proposition itself. Through that model, we're expecting the private sector to do that. And our partners, co-investment partners, are all online on our website, noticeable and there, and gives you a bit of detail about who they are and what they're interested in.
So just a last question that we always finish on. What would be your top 3 pieces of advice, Kerry, for entrepreneurs looking to raise finance?
So I've probably covered a lot of the things, but just to bring out maybe the ones that I would see as the most important. So I would reiterate again, and I've probably done it twice already, really, around the relationship with your investor. I do think that is the top priority for any company. I mean, the one thing I think we'd all know is that you look for funding, you put a business plan in, and it's not going to happen. Ultimately, we all know it won't happen. How much different to that it is the big question. And there's going to be bumps along the road, without a doubt. And you have to have somebody that you can share that with and get through those difficult times. If it's the first time you have a bump, you're all falling out. That's not going to kind of really work out. So spending the time to find the right investor, I think, is probably the most important thing. And the constant fundraising element, I would probably reiterate as well, that companies need to be focused on that all the time. Fundraising can take a huge amount of time, as mentioned earlier, it can be quick and easy, but I think that's probably the precious few that we see that the process being quick and easy. And trying to run a business and fundraise at the same time is probably one of the biggest challenges a lot of early stage companies kind of go through. And therefore, doing the groundwork on an investment proposition that might be coming is really important. So thinking constantly about you're going to be fundraising at some point, the more contacts you can make, the more engagements you can make, the more you can warm investors up so that when that fund round does come, then a lot of that's done already. I think is incredibly important. And I'd also, one of the things I've probably not mentioned is getting people round about you that you can really trust. I think is really, really important. When you're fundraising, it's really difficult to run a business as well. You need to have, your management team round about you, your board, your non-executive advisors, all people that you really can rely on along the way. I think, just the entrepreneurs that want to control everything and think the only person that can kind of do it is their baby. But whilst it is their baby, you don't have to take that away by having people round about you. But you need to bring the skills in. I've often heard people say about you being better than yourself, which I agree with. I've done that in my own team with some fantastic people in there, and that's the best thing that you can ever do as you start to grow your business, to have that network around you and wider than that, your advisors and everybody else. So take the help you can get.
I guess know your strengths, but know your gaps and how to fill those.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's fantastic. I've learned a lot. Really interesting insights. So thank you so much, Kerry. Can we have a thank you? Just a couple of thank yous from us. So we'd like to say thank you to our sponsors. We've got ESS Startup. Craig's here for talent and recruitment solutions for early stage businesses, and also to Scott Moncrief accountancy firm as well. Thank you very much to VectorFest Scotland, and if you haven't looked into it yet, do get yourself signed up. It's 20th of September at the Glasgow Science Centre. And thank you also to our partner Link Scotland and to our hosts Codebase, and also thank you to Alan from Product Forge, who has been live streaming it tonight, hence the nerves. Did you want to say a bit about the Product Forge?
I just wanted to do a quick shout out for the Cancer Data Dive, which is a 3-day Product Forge on the topic of cancer care. I think we've got some Product Forge alumni here. One. Yeah, we've got 2 Product Forge alumni, so if you want to know what it's like to come along to Product Forge, you can ask them. We bring together subject matter experts, so in this case oncologists and other people who work around cancer care, together with scientists, designers, entrepreneurs to prototype new digital products and services, and the NHS is releasing some new synthetic data representative of the real production data they have that they hold to improve cancer care. So if anyone's interested in that, if you give me a shout, that'd be great.
Sorry about that, Alan. And we also we've got a draw for a ticket to Startup Grind Europe. So we've got a big conference happening in London, 14th of June. It's going to be a fantastic event, some amazing speakers from across Europe and beyond. So I'm going to do a little draw. I'm going to ask Kerry. No pressure.
Sorry, I wasn't looking.
So somebody from here tonight will win a ticket to go.
Nick Clark.
Hey!
There you go. Congratulations.
I'll send you an email with the picture.
This is just a little thank you from us. And I
Thank
think
you
I've not
very
broken it. So.
Thanks again.
Thanks very much.